All right, so we're live. Hi, YouTube. Tamara here, and I have a special guest for you. This wonderful person that you see with the excellent dreads, her name is Rheadrea Monet. She is an author and spoken word poet from Washington, D.C. In April of 2014, she released her freshman poetry collection entitled The Birds, the Bees, and the Boudoir, an erotic poetry collective aimed at improving sexual education in America. Rheadrea, tell people hi.
Hello, people. And thanks so much for having me, Tam. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for coming. I was so excited that we were able to reconnect. Rheadrea and I are old friends from back in the college days.
Oh,
So
yeah.
she we've shared the spoken word stage quite a few times, and it's just really excited. I was really excited to hear that you had published a book. Could you tell us your inspiration and how this all came to be?
Absolutely. I had a bit of, I guess, a bit of a troubled childhood where, kind of sex was involved, as far as just, there were kind of molestation things, there was, a rape, there were, several things that were happening with older men. I just had, a bad sexual past. And with that, I also had a lack of education from both the schools and my family structure. And as a woman, I can look back on my past and I can see how each of those things has affected the person that I have become. And that lack of sexual education and that lack of knowledge, I think, not only on my part, but on the part of, the people who took out these things, upon me, on my family, on our whole system, that lack of education as a whole, it affects us all in ways that we don't nearly understand or communicate enough. I think a lot of people don't realize that um, sexual education also affects, our population. It affects our economic system, our structural growth. People don't pay attention to these things. Instead, it's more of a, kind of hands-off issue. We kind of throw everyone into the pool and let them figure out how to swim. So that's why I wrote this thing. I mean, I had an epiphany one day that without this knowledge and without someone to push these kinds of programs forward, there would never be a change and there would never be any growth.
How long did it take for you to write this collection?
This is about 10 years of works. Over the last 10 years before between 2004 and 2014, early 2014, I had been um, using poetry as an escape, and I had been using poetry as an escape and as therapy for a very long time. To just kind of explore my subconscious and to understand myself better. Through performing, I realized that I could also help other people with the things that I was feeling. And through those things, that's how I came to just collect these different pieces from different times in my life. They show not only different viewpoints, of sex and how that viewpoint evolves over time, but it also it covers a myriad of topics in just a few short pages.
Would you like to share one of your poems with us?
Oh, this is very innocent. And this is also a piece that I don't share very often, as far as, being on stage or performing it for people. But I think this is a very an apt description of what we're talking about right now. So this is entitled 1998 at the Old Mill, and it's from the book, The Birds, the Bees, and the Boudoir. Um, so he hesitantly stepped toward me, half expecting me to stop, to tell him it wasn't okay, to keep us from moving to the next level. Instead, I stood there, looking deeply into his eyes, being careful not to blink, sliding my bra straps down on each side and removing the clasp from behind. And as my bra fell, so did his gaze. For a moment, as if trapped in time, we just looked at each other's bodies. Then, as if small explosives detonated in our spirits, we launched toward each other in full fury, laying passionate kiss upon kiss on each other. Our hands, sweaty and inexperienced, touched places we frequently fantasized about. Lips kissed moist skin, forbidden places, tasting the flavors of our love. His eyes, scanning every fleshy surface and stopping just for a second to scan my eyes, looking for approval or perhaps advice. Our noses were filled with musk and heat and sweat as we listened to the melodies our bodies created, slapping, pulsing, grinding, waiting, waiting for an end to all of our sadness and our loneliness and our abuse and our hunger. He touched me gently like a lazy summer's breeze, gently enough that in the aftermath of lost innocence, it reminded me to breathe. Thank you.
I remember way back in the day when I listened to your poetry, and it all felt so very raw and so very real. You really dig from a very personal place, and I appreciate that as a reader and a writer.
Thank you. Thank you. I really do appreciate that.
Let's talk a little bit about your background and how you came to be where you are today in terms of writing. Do you remember when you started writing poetry?
I started writing poetry, well, at least my earliest memory of it is probably in the second or third grade. It was one of those passing exercises that we did, probably one of those like I am poems or, something like that to get you started and hooked, you know, it was over. I kept writing, and like I said earlier, I used it as an escape, to kind of get away from just all of the things that I was feeling, all of the things that I was thinking. I just felt very overwhelmed all of the time in my childhood, and the only time that I didn't feel that way is when I was writing. And yeah, it was that easy, and I started performing by the sixth grade. The sixth grade was the first time that I had my mom. I dragged her to a library so that I can just, try and go and perform poetry. And um, actually, I had no idea that it was supposed to be like a poetry slam. Like, I just saw that you could perform poetry, and I was like, yeah, let's go. So um, I've always been writing, always, 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 and I think I took a brief kind of foray into fiction for a second, but I quickly came back home.
Wow, sixth grade.
hmm
That that is such bravery. Let's see. With me, I don't think I've read a poem out loud in front of people until college.
What?
Yeah, because I did not think that I could do that. I thought that was there was other people from big cities who did stuff like that. Certainly not someone from Fairmont, West Virginia.
Mm-mm. No, I've been on the stage, my whole life in one capacity or another. If it wasn't performing poetry, it was, doing theater, it was dance troupe, it was choir or cheerleading. Like I've I don't know. I don't know. I guess I got a taste of the spotlight and I didn't want to let it go.
I didn't know you were a cheerleader, but I could see that. I could see that. So, who would you say most influenced your writing, whether it's a fellow author or an individual outside of the writing realm? Who is that person?
um, there are maybe three people, no, four people that I would name, and I know that's so random because you're like, who is this person? I never have like one person for like anything. Like, um, it's so hard. My heart's so big. I just love so much. Okay. Um, but there's Nikki Giovanni. She is my like lightning rod of just amazingness when it comes to poetry, and I have been a very, very big fan of her works. I have several of her books and like several of the like collections and things like that. Oh my God, I could go on for days. Anyway, um, and the Saul Williams, who, I mean, his performance style, right? His amazingness, like he is just a force to be reckoned with, and I am such a huge fan of his work. But my two non poetry influences are, and I know you're probably gonna laugh at me, but it'll make sense. Little Kim and Slick Rick. Okay.
But Slick Rick, though.
Slick Rick is a storyteller. Slick Rick is a storyteller. And that is what I love about him. He tells these vivid stories, and you can imagine like what's going on. You can see the dude in the red sweatsuit with the, you know what I mean? Like whatever it is, you can picture that. And that's how I try to write. I try to get people as much of a concrete picture as possible. And that's one of the things that I look to him for. And Lil Kim, she talk about some wow, wow, some bow chicka wow wow, and that's all in and out of the book. So
Uh, if you can say anything about Little Kim, but you cannot say that that woman has fear. She is fearless.
absolutely. And during the time when I was growing up, like in the early '90s, you know what I'm saying, we didn't have a huge amount of lady role models and things like that. And don't get me wrong, like Queen Latifah, don't girl stop playing. You know what I mean? But yeah, but Little Kim just, I don't know, she just had a more significant effect on me, probably obviously rather because of what I was going through in my early years. So I could
And
relate.
at that time period, Queen Latifah was moving more towards
Hmm.
television, movies, and stuff. So I could see that. Like
Yeah.
she was really the hottest in the '80s with her music,
Hmm.
hip hop. But
But I've still got them all on cassette tape.
huh, yes, I I love that one of your influences is Slick Rick, though. That kind of old school hip hop mentality, it's like people don't even know about it. It's
Yeah.
like that is that's a very good balance, really. Slick Rick, Lil Kim, it's like the melding of the two worlds.
That's what I try to go for, man. I try and create as much crossover as possible so that I can reach as broad an audience as possible.
So let me ask you, how how would you like your book to to be used in an education format? Like, how do you picture it happening? What would you like your ideal situation? What would it be?
Um, my ideal situation would be to have, um, and this is, maybe this answer is a lot bigger than your question, actually. um, but in the super long term, I would love to have um, schools teaching sexual education in as an impartial fashion as possible. So it should be taught like science. You know what I mean? And it should be taught every year, just like you have math every year, you have English every year, and they increase the difficulty every year. You increase the amount of knowledge that you provide, to these children every year, so that by the time that they are 18, they know exactly how their body works. They know what those implications are, but not only to have, that class in school, but to also have like parents be involved in this as well. Like, I don't know, maybe like a monthly Saturday class or something where the parents can also come in and they will have fodder to talk to their children about those things at home, as far as, religious implications are concerned, as far as, their family's personal beliefs or moral concerns and things like that. You will still have that area, to let your children know, what you believe in, what you don't, and things like that at home, but they will still know, what the, scientific breakdown of all of these things are. So in that fashion, it could be used, as a reading assignment textbook. It could be, used as a, like I said, certain pieces could be used as a bridge between parents and their children, you know, and those kinds of things, those kinds of bridging the gaps and starting the conversation. That's what I want to happen. I want people to look at these poems for more than their face value, to really get under and see, okay, in the poem that I read you, 1998 at the Old Mill, it's not just about, losing your virginity, it's also about, your innocence, these trusts that are exchanged between children, how they're admitting that they don't know what's going on, how they don't know, what's going to happen after. Like, there's a lot of ambiguity, there. There's a lot of emotional content, but there's also a lot of coldness, There's so much complexity to these things, and we kind of leave our kids out there to just, figure it out. And with everything else, we want them so prepared. And then we wonder how we get teenage pregnancy epidemics, waves of STDs.
Are you there?
It's because we parents there. Mm-hmm.
Okay. You cut out for a second. It said ways of ST. It's like, oh.
Oh, yeah, waves of STDs.
Amber waves of grain. No, sorry, that is not the same thing.
The American way.
Oh, oh, I hope not. I hope not.
I know, right? When hookup culture goes too far.
It does feel as though there is a hookup culture, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And there is with the rise of the hookup culture, there's also the rise of slut shaming, to which it's like, who are you guys supposed to be hooking up with then? You know, let's be honest, you know. So it's very, very odd. You know, there are definitely things that we need to address, and if we address them early, and if we address them often, you know, I believe that it's something that we can eradicate fairly quickly.
What was your favorite book as a child? What did you like to read?
Um, everything. Honestly, everything. I mean, as a super, super small child, of course, you know, Dr. Seuss, all the rhyming and like colors and happiness and like, are you kidding me? Yeah. But you know, I mean, there are I mean, I used to absorb just anything that I could get my hands on. Frequently go through the encyclopedia. Like my grandparents had an old set of Encyclopedia Britannica, you know, A to Z, like this year in science, like all of that stuff. So I would just go through those like all the time. Even if I was just bored and I'd read it before, I was like, all right, whatever, like, okay. So I have like tons of useless facts that are just, you know, piled up in my head now. Um, but oh man, I couldn't name one that was just my favorite, you know? Um, oh, yeah, no, I can't. I can't. Mm-mm. I'm sorry. Did you see me freak out for a second? I like came up on my knees and everything. I was like,
Too much. Too much pressure.
we'll
No,
be here all night for me to think of this.
so what do you have any writing goals for 2015? We're at the beginning of the year and everyone's all goals and resolutions.
Well, I'm not a resolution person. I am a goal setter though. And I have had this planned for a little while now. But I actually have just finished writing the second edition of The Birds, the Bees, and the Boudoir. And I will be releasing it this April.
Uh-oh. Go ahead, girl.
Yeah, I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, like the first edition, like this this little book is my baby, okay? Like it's my sweetheart and I love her and she's amazing and shiny and new. Um, and actually, hold on, let me show you my proof copy. And I'm sure that your proof copy looks like this too because you are a real author, okay? This is the real proof copy, okay? There are like stains at the bottom. It's like ripped to shreds. There are notes everywhere. It's like it's falling apart. Like I can take out pages. It's so it's so bad. I carry this book with me every day, every single day, and I put it aside, you know, for maybe 3 months after I initially published, and I just kind of basked in the glory that I was an author. But,
Yes.
but, but after that, you know, I picked it up and I read it, you know, cover to cover, and I asked myself if I achieved my goal. You know, I asked myself if I was any other person in the world, if I was not myself, and I picked up this book and I was just reading it and I skipped past the introduction. So many people skip the introduction. You know, so if I skipped the introduction and I was just reading the book, what would I think that it was about? And the answer is I would just think that it was about sex. I would just be like, oh, here's some, you know, nasty little poems. You know, yeah, let me take them home. You know, okay, like, sure, like maybe that'll sell copies, but the additions that I made to the book and well, actually, here, let me just tell you. I've added a couple of pictures. That's probably like the biggest like graphical change, and I've completely changed the cover. The book's no longer black; it's going to be like a deep, seductive red now. So that's going to be kind of cool. Um, I have increased. I've probably added another actually another 50 pages. So I'm at 100 pages for this new, copy that's twice the size of the first edition. And I've added in a lot of kind of author's notes where, I just, remind you and kind of bring you back to the focus of, kind of sex education. Let's talk about, the use of condoms. Let's talk about STD testing. Let's talk about, pregnancy. Just discussing all of these different things, and just to make sure that you're kind of brought back to the purpose of the book. And I feel a lot more confident that as the average, let's just pick it up and scan it reader, that I might be able to at least bump into one of those pages, before I finish my scan of the book there, and that I might be able to know a little bit more about what it's about. So,
Excellent. Excellent.
yep. So that's the big writing goal. But I definitely, I actually would love to, fingers crossed, I would love to publish a book once a year for like the next 5 years. That would be awesome. And not just, sexually based, but to touch all kinds of spectrums. And I'm also working on a children's book, on an educational series, that can start, with youth and develop as children do.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you so much luck for 2015 and beyond.
Oh, thank you.
And I'm very excited that we got to connect and you got to tell my audience more about you and what you do. How can everybody find you on these internets?
Oh, that's right. The all important social media. Um, well, you can find me at Poet Ray Monet. That's PoetRaeMonet. And that is across all of the platforms. So if you search for it on Facebook, you'll find me at Poet Ray Monet, Twitter at Poet Ray Monet, Instagram at Poet Ray Monet, just everything. And if you would like to find out a whole lot more information about me, you can visit my website, which is at Witch Ray. That is, I know it sounds really silly, but it's just like Witch Way, except,
Uh-huh.
Ray. So WHICHRAE .wordpress.com. So you'll be able to find me there as well. And I'm just going to stick this up. I'm just going to stick this up into your window here because I also have it written down on the last page of the book because I also want all of my fans to get in touch with me as well. Can you see all of that? Send me an email. You can send me an email. I love emails. I love pictures from my friends.
Wonderful. Now we'll put all of your links down in the description for people to copy and click on and do what they do.
Awesome.
So again, I am so tickled that we were able to connect and you came on here. I very much appreciate it. And I guess I will end this broadcast.
All right. Well, Tam, I'm so glad I got to see you, you beautiful, gorgeous author superstar thing, you.
Oh, you stop.
I miss you so much. I do, and I'm so glad that we could chat. I really am.
We'll have to do this again, not on YouTube. Not on Google.
Indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
do this again. But everyone, thank you so much for tuning in and checking this out. I'm going to be doing these book chats with authors, independent authors, on a monthly basis. So if you'd like to see more of these, let me know by subscribing and clicking the like button. And all comments are welcome, as long as they're not abusive and derogatory. So I am going to bid you adieu and thank you again. Aloha, y'all.
All right. Have